guy's gonna be some senator one day.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Jesse Hughes Show. Before we get into anything else, I have something very, very important I have to share with you guys. Share screen. I am participating in something called the A Sea of Red's Liberty Twitter Bracket Challenge. Now, as you can see here, I am currently barely in the lead. Let me go back one, and oh, I lost it there. It's okay, I have it bookmarked. While I re-find this. But as you guys can see, I have a lead, but it's a very, very slight lead. If you do not know what this is, A Sea of Red is a Liberty sports outlet. It's a Liberty sports network that does, it covers all Liberty sports. It covers everything from football to basketball to baseball to just about anything that you can think of. And they do a fan bracket every year where they pit Liberty fans against one another. And It's just a challenge for bragging rights to see who the biggest Liberty fan is. Now, as you can see on my screen here, there are 292 votes. There are 23 minutes left, and I have a 50.7% lead. I need every single person watching this, every single person to go vote. Go vote on this. I'm putting a tweet out now. Go vote. Hashtag Liberty Twitter Bracket Challenge. Jet Hughes show is live and we are ready. Post. So go find that tweet. Go look for that tweet. And go vote in that thread. It's very important. I need you guys' help. If you guys can help me out, that would be amazing. Yeah. So that's that. So yeah, that is all that I have on that. Now into the actual important fun stuff for tonight. Not that that's not fun or important, but that's not what the main focus of the show is. I just need some help. The main thing we're going to be focusing on tonight is, I'm sure many of y'all have seen, but there's a term floating around out in the atmosphere, out in the cosmos. That term is Christian nationalism. Now, anytime I bring up the term Christian nationalism, it's in one of two contexts. It's either used as a slur against conservative Christians like yourself or me, who are involved in politics and want to make an impact on our nation. It's used as a slur against those who think that the United States of America was founded as a Christian nation, which it was, and that we should maintain the Christian heritage, which we should. It's either used in that context as a slur against those people, or it's used in another context where some people who are do skewed view of how politics affects Christianity use it as a term to try and describe this Trump as some sort of prophet, and we are ushering in biblical prophecy using Trump. I disagree and I disavow that second point. I think that's. But the main use of the term Christian nationalism by the left is towards normal, everyday Americans. You might have seen me tweet today about a clip from MSNBC where one of their contributors said that if you believe that God, not government, is the one who grants us rights, if you believe that it is God who grants us our rights, and that it is government's job to maintain and keep those rights and make sure those rights aren't infringed, if you believe that, you're a Christian nationalist. Not only are you a Christian nationalist, but according to MSNBC, you're not a Christian, because Christian nationalism and Christianity are apparently, according to them, two separate things. Many conservative Christians have been wary of the term Christian nationalism. I kind of understand. Nationalism in modern day is usually used to describe something that's extreme, whether it be white nationalism or extreme ultranationalism. Nationalism has a bad connotation, but here's the truth. Historically, up about 20 minutes ago, nationalism was seen as a civic virtue, the highest civic virtue. Everyone was a nationalist. Everyone identified as a nationalist. Nationalism and patriotism for most of human history have been synonymous. It's been. And so, but now nationalism has been taken and applied to things that are objectively evil. The Nazi Party was a nationalist party. White nationalism, the belief that white people are superior to all other races, that is unbiblical and against God's word. But the left has successfully used the term nationalism in those movements to scare ordinary Americans like you and me from ever using the term or being attributed to it. And now that they've done that, they've gone so far that they've Now that they've used the term nationalism to describe something that's bad and conditioned the American public to fall in line with that, now they've come out with Christian nationalism. They describe Christian nationalism as this belief that we're going to forcibly convert everyone in the United States that we're going to force them into conversion, that we're going to set up some theocratic state where if you're not a Christian, you'll be executed and all of your rights will be trampled. And they'll use that term to describe people like you and me. Now, I will say that I have used the Christian nationalist to identify myself and how I lean politically. But my version of Christian nationalism differs from the leftist version. When I say Christian nationalism, what I'm talking about is this idea that the founding fathers, though some were not Christians, used Christian ideas and used the Bible to craft the laws of this nation at its founding. They used ideas such as Hebrew republicanism, they used ideas such as the depravity of man, and they used ideas and took laws straight from Scripture to support the idea that there should be with a separation of powers. If you go back and look, all of the colonies had established churches. People oftentimes throw out this idea of separation of church and state. Separation of church and state is one of the biggest misnomers in all of American history. Separation of church and state was supposed to be, it was only used once in a one-off letter by Jefferson to a group of Baptists, and it was supposed to just convey the idea that the government cannot dictate your theology, which is a good idea. The government shouldn't be able to dictate your theology. The government shouldn't be able to tax a church and dictate, well, if you have this belief, then you can't be a real Christian church in our country. No. That was supposed to be what separation of church and state was. And many people also point to the Establishment Clause that says Congress shall establish no religion in the United States. They'll point to that and say, look, the founders wanted to establish a secular nation. That's not completely true either. The reason that the Establishment Clause is in the First Amendment is because they didn't want the federal government interfering with already established state churches in the 13 colonies, most of which were Anglican. Some were Presbyterian, others Baptist. Many of the colonies, all of the colonies in fact, had established churches. And many of the states kept those establishments well into the 19th century, almost to the 20th. You couldn't be a non-believer and run for office in many states, and the founders supported this. Many of the founders supported the idea of government promoting religion using funds, because, like John Adams said, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the governance of any other. That is what I say when I say I believe in Christian nationalism. But the left will take Christian nationalism to this scary term that covers all conservatives, no matter what your belief is. If you are a Christian and you are involved in politics, they are going to use the term Christian nationalism to try and scare you into submission. And now you have a choice to make. Hear the term Christian nationalism. Are you going to get scared by the label? Are you going to back down from your beliefs just because of this label? Or are you going to say, no, I don't care what you call me. I'm going to stand up for what I believe, and I'm going to fight for what I know is right. The choice is yours. The left has already made their choice. They're going to fight you tooth and nail no matter what you decide to do. Even if you do back down and appease them, it will not be enough until you've either totally changed your beliefs and you fit in with their orthodoxy, or you shut up and be silent completely. You cannot have a heterodox opinion in this new leftist religion. So when you're confronted with the label Christian nationalism for opposing gay marriage, when you're with the label of Christian nationalism, for being pro-life, when you are confronted with the label of Christian nationalism because you believe that what is happening at our southern border is a tragedy and needs to be stopped, what are you going to do? The choice is yours. It's your time to make it. Now, moving on, we have a new. So, I've been meaning to get some interviews together, and we actually do have our first interview tonight that I will be playing here. As you guys know, I am the president of the Liberty University College Republicans. The College Republicans is an organization that has existed for a long time with the express goal of making sure that Republican candidates get elected to office and that students like myself are given the opportunity to be able to go out and to make change and to get involved in campaigns and to do things on the ground, to get involved with the grassroots so that conservative Republican candidates can get elected to office and so that um, young people like or like some of the people in my chapter are able to get experience, connections, and internships that will help them later in their careers. Now, the college Republicans have been going through a tough time recently, and that's why I was glad to be able to bring on to the show my friend William Donahue, who is president of a new organization called College Republicans of America, and I'm very excited for you guys to see what he has to say. This was a pre-recorded interview. I hope you guys enjoy it. All right, guys. Today I have a very special interview. Someone who I have known for quite a few months now, someone who has been doing a lot of very hard work behind the scenes in the conservative movement. I'd like to introduce to the stage for us now Mr. William Donahue, who is the president of the College Republicans of America, looking like a classic professor with that good old whiteboard background hanging out. William, how are you doing tonight?
It's great to be here, Jesse. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, thank you for coming on. So just first and foremost, for those in the audience who might not know what it is, can you explain what College Republicans of America is and why you started it?
Absolutely. So, College Republicans of America is a mission to restore the College Republican National Organization that once was a huge player in the GOP in terms of our grassroots activism and ability to create the Republican candidates of the future. The Republican National Committee, College Republican National Committee, worked together for a long time to create candidates. Karl Rove and Kevin McCarthy and major players within the GOP all went through, the CRNC. And a couple of years ago, for a variety of reasons, primarily COVID, but also a couple other organizations that came to national prominence, the organization died. They're down to 30 or so chapters. Their social media is almost completely dead. Um, it's unfortunate, but there was a vacuum and we filled it. The goal is to bring it back to 1,000 chapters or more across the country, get the grassroots machine revving up again. And we're at about 140 chapters in half the states in about 10 months. We're growing pretty quickly, and we're looking forward to getting to work in the upcoming election cycle.
Awesome. So just for those who might be out of the loop, who might not know for sure what's going on, can you kind of explain what kind of led to the downfall of the CRNC? How did they go from a very prominent organization, or like you said, people like McCarthy had to come through it to be able to have any sort of national prominence? How did they go from that to what they are today, where they're now bleeding off chapters left and right?
Mm-hmm. It really started in 2019. They made the decision to remove the California College Republicans, of which I was chairman about a year and a half after they had kicked us out. California historically has been the largest and most influential state, despite it being a blue state. And it wasn't always a blue state. McCarthy was treasurer of CCR back when he was in college, and the chairman of the Orange County Republican Party, was chairman of CCR. It was a huge organization, and it still is today. They've got over 30 chapters. But after California was removed, and the reason they were removed is because the former chairman for me, Kimo Gandol, had exposed that they were basically millions of dollars in debt, and that there were some unsavory, financial practices that were occurring within the upper leadership and side organizations, consultants from the Bush area that they were working with. After California left, it started a cascade as other chapters started to figure out what happened. Other large states left, like Texas and New York. And then we got COVID in 2020, and that crushed the rest of the infrastructure. You could make an argument that Turning Point had a large, play in that as well. When Turning Point, and we're partnered with Turning Point, we've found a way to rebrand and work together. But there were a couple of years there where Turning Point came onto the scene with major funding, and they took a large segment of the activism, away from the purpose of the college Republicans. And so many college Republicans chapters became Turning Point chapters. Many chapters folded during COVID, and the rest of the states kind of just went their own separate ways with the CRNC after the incident with California and a couple of the other states. There were also many states that were deplatformed and not given an opportunity to vote for the chairman elections. It was a mess. We've restructured and rebranded CRA so that we don't have those problems. We don't have the same elections that CRNC did, so we're not going to, have those election problems anymore.
Awesome. So what, president of this organization, what goes into running an organization like this, whether it be which chapters and specific regions that you target, relationships with potential donors and existing donors, just behind the scenes, bureaucratic, for lack of a better word, type. What goes into running an organization like this, and how have you been able to manage that so
far? It's like any other startup. You have a lot of bureaucratic functions that are not very fun. And in the beginning, every innovator has to deal with those. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of busy work doing things that you don't want to do, building websites and drafting white papers and documents, and throwing yourself at donors to try to get them to believe in your vision. It's no different than being an entrepreneur with a product, except you're not selling them a product, you're begging them to give you money to start up a political organization. It definitely wasn't easy, and to be honest, I can't take the credit by myself. I didn't build this organization by myself. Very beginning, the chairman and executive director of the Wisconsin College Republicans jumped into the fray with me. Soon after that, the president of the Dayton College Republicans joined the board, and the board just kept growing. It started out, for the first couple weeks, kind of putting everything together with a couple of general consultants that I knew, and we had a great CPA that helped us file a lot of the paperwork. Dylan Martin, the executive director of the California College Republicans, helped us build a website. So that there were a lot of key players that were involved at the very beginning of the organization. After it took off, probably about 5 or 6 months in, the board tripled in size, and now we've got 20 people volunteering and interning their time around the clock. A huge team for chapter outreach and press and social media coordination and content creation, and it's a lot. It's a lot of work, and it's been kind of a pain to continue to manage it in law school. And the only reason I've been able to do it is because I've got such a great team.
Yeah, for sure. So with the Wisconsin College Republicans, I know that you've worked very closely with them. Was there an existing relationship that kind of helped spur their participation in this, or was it more they saw what you were doing, they saw the vision that you were casting, and they wanted to jump in?
Yeah, so actually what happened was I I was actually suspicious of them at first. Funny enough, Billy and Jack were um, they they were interested in the organization. They reached out to me, and I'm trying to say this in the in the best way I can. This is the first time I've gotten this question. Jack is an interesting character, but Billy's an even more interesting character. Both incredibly loyal friends, and I'm so blessed to have both of them working on the project with me. But the way they kind of introduced themselves, it was like, hey, what is going on here? Because they were part of NFCR at the time, another side organization that split off of CRNC. And I told them, I'm trying to create this national organization. We're going to try to pipeline students into industry and government jobs. And um, this is the funny part about it. I was talking to Billy about it, and Billy was like, "So what's your religious background?" I was like, "Oh, I'm Greek Orthodox," and he just like went down on one knee. He was just like, "Okay, fine, Greek Orthodox relationship here," because Billy's also Greek Orthodox, and was like, "Fine, we'll follow you." And so Wisconsin dropped NFCR on the spot and joined us, and we've just been best friends ever since. I'm not entirely sure how that happened. It's kind of a weird story, but how Billy and Jack joined.
For sure. So, what kind of impact have you seen so far through the new organization? I understand that you have a number of chapters across the country, a number of state organizations across the country. You've just recently added Virginia, added my College Republicans chapter here at Liberty University. You just recently added the New York Federation and a number of others. Can you kind of go into what has the impact looked like so far, and how many guys have y'all been able to kind of add into the organization since its inception?
Sure. So we started with California's 30 odd chapters and Wisconsin's 20 odd chapters. It was about 50, 55 chapters we started with, and we've almost tripled in size since then. Our membership is looking around 10,000 strong nationwide. Obviously, not all of those members are active, but we've been able to scrounge up several large deployments at this point, most notably in the Iowa caucuses. We had over 24 kids flying from 9 different states to brave the -40 weather in Iowa. If it wasn't -40, we probably would have had a much larger turnout. Those couple dozen kids flew across the country, drove in horrible weather down from Madison, and they made well over 50,000 calls in 4 days. We got over 1 million views on social media because the Trump team and Kerry Lake and Jason Miller and some others graciously platformed us on Twitter. There were some really great moments in that, including a flag drop in Des Moines that President Trump allowed our students to stand next to him for that. I think this is going to continue to grow. We made several tens of thousands more calls in New Hampshire. I know we're doing good work in South Carolina right now in the primary, but this is just the beginning of the fight, right? And we're also doing community service efforts across the country. We've done drives with Latino outreach, doing Bibles and backpacks in underprivileged cities in Los Angeles, food drives in Syracuse, New York. A lot of our chapters have contributed to Project Teddy, which is our environmental initiative to start cleaning up forests and beaches and other nature reserves. I think it's really important as conservatives to conserve the environment, not necessarily buy into the global warming side that I think, but Teddy Roosevelt considered conserving our environment to be a really important part of our platform, and so we do too. So small impacts here and there across the states as we become more organized and we continue to generate more donations. Our ability to do outreach campaign and to obviously CRA itself doesn't campaign. We campaign through our member chapters, and they volunteer their time strictly for campaign finance reasons. But the chapters have been doing a lot of really good work on those fronts. So we're going to continue to grow. I'm looking forward to the general election once we can kind of push past this. But anyways, I may end up being kicked out for a class right now.
Well, we are nearing the end of the time anyway. Well, thank you so much for hopping on here and speaking with us today about CRA. I hope to continue the great effects that you guys are doing. I'm glad that Liberty University and our College Republicans chapter here, as well as the State Federation for Virginia, can be a part of that. Thank you for all the hard work, and thank you for joining.
Thank you very much for joining, Jesse. We're glad to have you guys on board. Looking forward to what Virginia's going to be able to do in the cycle, and we're here for you always.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, I was still muted. Thank you for pointing that out. Um, Thank you to William for hopping on. It was good to have him. We are going to transition now into the next thing. We only have 2 segments left. Um, First, we're going to look at really quickly we're going to look at a clip that was presented a couple nights ago with Donald Trump and him talking about his picks and his choices for vice president. I'm going to go ahead and play that.
View that. The audience has been asked who they think would be a good choice, and various names came up. One of them was, of course, Vivek Ramaswamy. Yeah. He's made a big splash. Ron DeSantis, who's making an appearance today in South Carolina, we just found out. Obviously, Tim Scott, Byron Donalds, and a big presence here for Tulsi Gabbard. Very interesting. And Kristi Noem as well, I should say. Right. Are they all on your short list? And when can you view that? The audience has been asked who they think would be a good choice, and various names came up.
So as you can hear, he talks about a few different people, including Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Scott, Ron DeSantis, Byron Donalds, Kristi Noem, Tulsi Gabbard, as potential picks for vice president. Now, thoughts on this. Personally, out of this list, my personal favorite for vice president was not featured on this list. The person that I think would make the best vice president, and I'll explain why, is Dr. Ben Carson. Now, a lot of people have been kind of over the idea of Ben Carson because he is a little bit more quiet. He's a little bit more reserved. He's a little bit lower energy than Trump. But the thing about Carson is that, in my opinion, he balances Trump out very well. He is a figure that he's Trump. He's loyal to the kind of the agenda that Trump's going to be pushing. So unlike a Tulsi Gabbard, who is someone who I do like and I do have a lot of admiration for, my worry with Tulsi is that she would that her contributions to the ticket, her moderate appeal, her appeal to disaffected Democrats, which are good. My concern is that she would end up being a roadblock to some of Trump's agenda. As you know, she was a Democrat as recently as last year. She has only very recently left the Democratic Party. As far as I know, her on gun control and abortion, while maybe more conservative than most Democrats, are still a little bit liberal, which, so to be fair, so are Trump's, but I think that hers are a little bit more liberal than his. I feel like she would end up being a roadblock. Yes, I saw, sorry to pause this, I saw the Liberty Twitter bracket. I'm a little annoyed that we held the lead all day, only for very last second things to switch as drastically as they did. It seems a little bit sus, but congratulations anyway on a race well run. Liberty Mountain Views was not expecting that last second comeback Congratulations. Back to politics. Tulsi, I feel like, would potentially being a hindrance and a roadblock to some of Trump's agenda and some of what groups like the Heritage Foundation with Project 2025 want to get pushed through. Someone like Tim Scott could have good appeal. Byron Donald's good appeal, but he's from Florida. Ron DeSantis, in my opinion, would have been the option, but he has already said that he does not want the job. The reason I think DeSantis would be best is because he's very similar to Trump on policy. He plays a little bit more into the conservative than the populist side of the party, and that would draw a lot of Trump hesitant people in. But DeSantis, he does not, and it would be good for party unity, but DeSantis has said he does not want to be vice president. So for that reason, my endorsement for vice president goes to Tim Scott. I know a lot of people have been talking about the possibility of having Vivek as vice president. I think that's I think it'd be good, but I think that Vivek would do much better in a position such as chief of staff, or maybe as a secretary in Trump's cabinet. I'm not so sure about vice president. Now, one thing that you do have to realize is that whoever Trump's vice president is going to be the automatic front runner for the 2020 election. So that's also a big reason why a lot of people say it should be someone like Vivek. But I don't think it has to be someone that's going to immediately run for office. Now, it could end up being someone that's going to immediately run for office. It could end up being Tulsi. It could end up being Vivek. But personally, I like Ben Carson. That he is the best option, and I think that he would do a fantastic job. Now transitioning back into sports. We opened the show with sports. We're about to close the show with sports. The greatest day for many college football fans earlier last week has finally arrived. NCAA 14. We thought it was the last college football game we'd ever see, but we were presented with a big surprise early last week. Trailer for the brand new college football 25 game was released, and I will be playing that and talking about it because I personally am very excited.
Got something special for y'all. A little update for our fans from the Big House to the Bayou, from Carolina to California. Yeah, it's about college football. We know you love it. Us too. The rivalries, comebacks, the traditions and superstitions built by generations. There's nothing like it. Turns out, we've been building too. So let's address the big owl in the room. Yeah, we've seen the posts, the predictions, the doubts. We get it. It's been a minute. Let's just say this ain't the only jersey we've been working on. The game this sport deserves. Because pretty soon, this place will be full again. Until then, cue the crowd noise.
So yeah, college football video games are back. The specific release date is not confirmed. It is coming out this summer. Very excited. I cannot wait. I'm very excited to see when that comes out and what happens and if I can play it, because right now I just have an Xbox One. I've heard it's only going to be available on next-gen consoles, which means I'm going to have to be saving a lot of money. But hopefully we'll be able to play it this summer. I'm very excited. I cannot wait for it to come out. That, honestly, when that came out, that made my day. I'm not going to lie. That made my day when that first came out. So, I'm excited. I can't wait for it. I can't wait for the Liberty rebuild. It's about to go crazy. Yeah, very, very, very fun times. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining in tonight. Thank you so much for participating. We tried to get the Liberty Twitter bracket challenge victory. I ended up not. My opponent somehow had the crazy last minute. I'm not going to accuse him of fraud, but it was kind of sus. But anyway, all joking aside, thank you guys for participating. Thank you guys for voting for me. Thank you guys for watching tonight. God loves you and so do I. Have a good